Hey y'all, it's Bethany here. Welcome back to my channel, Bethany Brings Books. I am excited to be doing a video today because it has been a while since I've done a video. It's been probably a week or two since I've filmed one. I've just been pretty busy with just a lot of different things going on in the springtime, Been pretty busy. So I've been looking forward to filming another video. So today I'm going to be talking about what I read over the last few weeks. I'm just going to call it a reading update because it's going to be books I read at the end of April and so far this month in May. It is May the 15th and my reading has slowed down a bit in May. May has gone by so fast and I've only actually finished 2 books. So my reading has slowed down quite a bit, but I'm hoping it'll pick up throughout the rest of the month. But anyway, I thought I would give y'all guys an update about what I have been reading. So let's get started, guys. So first of all, we're going to talk about Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. I finished this last month and I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 5 stars. I just found it interesting. I will say though, after a few weeks have gone by, it's not one that I'm like still thinking about. So, and I feel like in a way I kind of rate books based on that, like my experience with the book long term, and this one is not one that I'm still really thinking about. There was a lot in it that I enjoyed. I liked Agnes. I really enjoyed the spiritual themes in it. Definitely, it does have, a little bit more of a darker atmosphere, as I think the Bronte sisters books usually do. But I did find it interesting. It's also very short, so if you're looking for a classic read that's short, that would be, a lot less daunting than some of the bigger classics. This would be one to go with. Overall, I think, I gave it a high rating, but I think looking back, since it's been a few weeks since I finished it, I would drop it just a bit. Mostly just because it's not really stayed on my mind. It's not really stuck with me a lot. Glad I've read it. It's another one that I can check off my list. I did enjoy it enough that I want to definitely read Anne Bronte's other works. She has one other work, I think, and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. So I did order that one from Amazon and I want to read that one. But I really liked the spiritual elements in here. She had a lot of things that I really enjoyed. I will say at the start of the book, some of the kids because she's a governess, Agnes is a governess. So some of the kids that she initially works with at the start are absolutely horrible, and there's like cruelty to animals, and it's so, I can't stand it. I was like, this is getting on my nerves. But anyway, so yeah, overall I did enjoy it. I enjoyed, like I said, the spiritual elements to it. So I'm glad I read it. Now we're going to talk about a book. This is called While the City Sleeps by Elizabeth Camden. This book I loved. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I was kind of leery going in because I have heard mixed reviews about it. Elizabeth Camden is one of my absolute favorite authors in the historical Christian fiction world. So I was excited, but also after I started hearing reviews, I was kind of like, I'm kind of nervous. But I have to say I love this. It's set in 1913 in New York City, and we follow our main character, who is a dentist, and she works for a dentist who, his practice tries to really cater to more, I guess, in the minority, sort of, maybe, and also people who work at night, things like that. He tries to offer his practices to people who might not be able to get dental work otherwise. So she works in the evenings in a late shift, and through this, she meets a police officer named Jonathan Birch, and he begins walking her home every night. And so when we open it up, that he's been walking her home every night for like several years. And she happens to overhear something being told to, like one of her patients is under the influence of laughing gas, and she overhears something that at first she doesn't realize is anything significant, but then later, after some things start happening around the city, some criminal activity, she realizes, okay, what I heard might have been connected to this. So she goes to Jonathan and talks to him about it, and this follows that. It follows just all of that that's going on in the city, the things that are taking place, trying to figure out, is it the mafia? Is it anarchist? What is it who is it that's behind these situations. And of course, because she came forward, now her life is being impacted by this, and she's possibly being put into danger because of what's going on. And we see her and Jonathan's relationship beginning to kind of develop, because she's really had this crush on him for a couple of years, and he's never acted any other way besides friendly to her. He's never indicated that he was interested in her. So she finally is like, okay, is this starting to go somewhere? But then he has his own issues and secrets that he's kind of tried to hide for years. So that comes into play. But I loved the descriptions of New York in this time period. I loved like hearing about the architecture and all of the different details about the city, and just so many historic details that she brings in that I love. And I think to love this, I don't want to say you have to like history, but I think if you like history, you'll probably like this, because that's me. I love history and all the little historic details, especially about things that we don't typically read about. Yeah, so this one I just really liked. I love it. I can't wait to read the rest in this series. And so now I also want to talk about two books that I read. One I actually read in March, the other one I read in April, but I had said in my March wrap up that I'm going to talk about them together. And they are two books by C.P. Cabanis. She is over at Courtney Reads, that's her channel, and she has written several books, and her newest is called I've Said Love. And it's the second in the Vows series. So she reached out to me asking if I would be interested in reading this and reviewing it. So I said yes, and then she also offered to let me read the first in the series, which is called Before and After. So I read the first in March, and the second one I read in April. And so these are, I would say, like sweet, clean romances, and they were both pretty short, so they're very quick reads. The first one follows Valancy and Will. It's around like the holiday season, so it's around Thanksgiving. She gets stranded in an airport, and while she's stranded there, she runs into one of her old friends from high school. I think it's high school or middle school. They were childhood friends. And they kind of reconnect at the airport. And so after Valancy's father died when she was young, her and her mom moved away, and she kind of just disconnected from a lot of her old friends and relations. That's kind of what the story's talking about. We're seeing Valancy as she's, finally realizing that she didn't deal with her grief very well, and that areas that it impacted her, and she pushed people away, and she's just like coming to realize that. And so her and Will are kind of facing that in their relationship. They are kind of thrown back together, and so they begin to reconnect and kind of deal with those issues from long ago. And so it is set around the Christmas holidays. That is a fun aspect of it if you want something to read for like a Christmas read. I enjoyed that Courtney dealt with the topic of grief. And I know that sounds weird. I enjoyed that, but I appreciated it, I guess I should say, because it's definitely a topic that I think I wish more fiction would deal with, particularly Christian fiction. And I know her book is not classified as Christian, it's clean fiction, but even in the clean fiction world, I feel like especially like in romances, that I like when they have that like that multi-layered effect, where it's not just a light fluffy romance, but it's got deeper themes, especially about dealing with grief and dealing with loss. And so we see that she's bringing in those themes of loss and grief, and how Valancy's finally realizing the issues that she has and that have happened, that she hasn't dealt with throughout her young adulthood and her early adulthood. So yes, and we see a romance, of course, developing between Will and Valancy. And yeah, like I said, it does deal with that deeper topic, but I feel like it's done in a very easy way. It's not, too hard to read. I don't think. I know some people struggle with reading about grief in books, but yeah, I thought it was done in a very easy way. It wasn't overbearing. My one complaint about both of these books is that I wish they were, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say, I want to say longer, but I don't want to say longer just to be longer. I wish there was a little bit more, I think, details within the story. That the story would have been expanded a bit more. They felt a little bit like novellas. I'd like to see a little bit more just development of the story, more of the characters' lives, maybe. I don't know if that makes sense. But I loved Will. He was such a sweet character. He was so thoughtful. Like, while they were at the airport, he was just, he was very attentive to details. So he would notice if there was someone in need and lend a helping hand. And I thought that was super sweet about him. I like that. So I just appreciated that. And that was the first one, Before and After. So the second book is called I've Said Love. And this one follows Valerie, who was, she was a side character in the first book. She is Valencie's close friend. And in this book, she is dealing with a loss, a breakup, and just, it's like I said, a year later. So she's dealing with a breakup, and she's dealing with her own grief with that, and just life is not turning out really the way she thought it was. And so Valerie is asked to plan a wedding, and at first she's, you know, kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, is going to affect me with dealing with my grief and everything. But then she decides, you know, it's her best friend, so she's like, yes, I'm going to plan this wedding. She ends up developing a friendship with Ethan, who is the best man in the wedding. And so they're actually asked to plan the wedding together, and, you know, they're taking care of the details and stuff. And it's another story of dealing with kind of, I would say there is some grief in it, but it's not really grief from the loss of a loved one. It's grief, more, you know, grief of, and dealing with, like, life hasn't turned out the way you thought, and you know, after a breakup. I liked Ethan. He was, I just liked him. He was a interesting character. I liked that she brought in some elements of, like, dealing with mental health, and that, you know, he had dealt with his own issues. And but I also liked that he had a landscaping business. I thought that was interesting, because I'm like, I hope this I want to say this, I hope it makes sense, but I wish there were more portrayals in books of, like, ordinary careers. You know, like, I feel like we read a lot of books where people are, like, cops and firefighters and FBI agents and CIA agents, and I would say not so much cop. Like, a cop I can see more so, because, like, a small town cop, I feel like that's more of an ordinary career, versus, like, we see a lot of these, like, FBI, CIA, huge city detective, whatever. You know what I mean? And so sometimes I'll like think about a career, and I'm like, you know what, it would be interesting to read a book where that was the main character's career. Like, y'all might think this is weird, but a while back I was thinking about, like, funeral home directors. I was like, that would be an interesting book to read about a main character whose career was a funeral home director. Not like in a weird sense, but I just think about it sometimes, how, like, at funeral homes, a lot of the people that you see are older, and, like, I guess you think about who chooses that career, like, who goes into that career purposefully. I don't know, y'all. That's how my brain is. So I just wonder, like, are less people choosing that career now than used to? And if so, what will happen in the future? And then I was thinking about all that, and then, like, you know what? It would be interesting to read a book about someone that was a funeral home director. People, like, you know, sometimes make jokes about it, about people that have that job, but I feel like it's a job that you could really be a blessing in, you know? Like, because you're dealing with people in their time of grief, and I feel like it's a job that you could definitely be a blessing in. Anyway, that's my side note that, whatever. I like that he was a landscaper. I felt like it's a job that you don't see a lot in fiction, and so I just thought that was interesting. And Valerie is seeing also, like, how she kind of gave up on her dreams years ago of being a wedding planner, and so planning this wedding is bringing all of that back. And so it's kind of I guess, finding your place, your purpose in life, figuring out your direction, that type of story. Like I said, it was clean, it was a sweet story, and overall I enjoyed it. I gave both of these 3.75 stars. I enjoyed Courtney's writing, but like I said, I wish the stories were a little more, I just wish there were more details, more experiences. I don't know. I want to read, like, you know, whatever Courtney writes next. I want to read the next one in the series. I enjoyed it, and like I said, that was just my deal with that. And the only other thing was also that I think it was written in first person present tense, which I struggle with a bit. Sometimes for some reason that pulls me out of the story a bit. So I think that's what it was. So that I did struggle with that just a bit, but otherwise, yes, I enjoyed it. Like I said, y'all go check out her channel, go check out these 2 books, and just go support another YouTuber and indie author. If you like sweet romances, then I believe you'll like these 2. All right, so let's talk about this, The Scarlet Pen by Jennifer Ulrich. This book, I think I'm using it for Chantel's prompt for her the Read Your Bookshelf challenge. So I took the Doyle side, I believe. I switched over to the Doyle side last month. I am still reading a book with a redheaded main character. I'm still reading the Anne book. I started the 5th one, Anne's House of Dreams, and I am enjoying it. I started that, so I'm hoping to finish it within the next week or so. So the prompt after that, read a book by a new to you author. So this was one of my books that my kids picked for books to read in 2024. And this is The Scarlet Pen. It is part of the True Colors series, which is historical stories of American crime. And this actually really surprised me, guys. I really enjoyed this a lot. It was very captivating. This series, they're each different authors, and they're based on different historical events in American history, true crime events. I think they're all set in America. Yeah, American crime, yes. And so this one, I really wasn't expecting a lot going into it, but I think this author, for me, wrote, like, I loved her writing style. I enjoyed it immensely, you know, the way she wrote. This story I found absolutely fascinating. I will say, just before I give you the review, that it is kind of gruesome. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it deals with a darker storyline because it's talking about a serial killer. So, and we see his point of view, and so it is kind of, we do see, like, you know, him killing people and stuff throughout the story. So nothing too gruesome or graphic, but that is part of the story.
It's my turn.
But yeah, it does deal with, you know, these darker themes, so it can be a little bit gruesome at times. But so we're following the main character, Emma, and Emma has recently become engaged to Stephen D. Richards. And I will go ahead and tell you, Stephen D. Richards is our main character, the real character in this story. And I will say I had to really, really be careful with not Googling stuff because I wanted to look him up so bad and see what he looked like. I finally, after I read quite a bit in it, I did look him up. But yes, so we follow Emma, who's recently become engaged to Stephen. They're like grew up knowing each other from childhood, and they've recently become reacquainted, and they get engaged. And her parents are not like super supportive of this engagement just because they feel like it's kind of fast, and they want to make sure he can support her. And so he says that he has a career. He's kind of secretive about it. He don't really go into details, but he's like telling them, yes, I can provide for her. I've got all of this situation that's working out, and when I have more details, we have like this business project that we're working on, and when I have more details, I'll let you know, and all this stuff. The father says they can be engaged. They have to be engaged for a year before they can get married. So not long after they get engaged, Stephen leaves all of a sudden, and he tells her he's got to go to, you know, he's got to go travel. He'll be gone for a few months to work on his business dealings. So at the same time this is going on, a young man named Clay, who works for the Secret Service, comes to town, and he's investigating counterfeit money that's being passed around town. And as he investigates all of this, his trail begins to lead to Stephen. And at first, Emma is very frustrated by this because she doesn't think Stephen would do anything like this. And so her and Clay clash. But there's also kind of this spark between them as well. And I will say that at the start of the story, her and Stephen had only been reacquainted for like a month before they got engaged. So there's that. But yes, so throughout the story, we're following Clay's point of view, we're following Emma's point of view, and we're also following Stephen's point of view as Stephen is, after he leaves and he's traveling throughout. My kids are in there yelling. He's traveling throughout like Nebraska and Iowa. And so we're seeing his point of view as well. But yeah, like I said, it kept me absolutely captivated. I found it fascinating reading about this man who was a serial killer, and it was very interesting, especially after I read it. I was reading stuff about him, and definitely he definitely felt like a psychopath, narcissist, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, if you like true crime, which I do, I really enjoy reading about particularly historical true crime, this book is very fascinating. It does have a little bit at the beginning. There is an instance of harm to animals, which it might bother you. It's not like graphic or anything, but it is talked about, mentioned. So that is something that you might want to be aware of at the beginning of the story. The next book that I have finished is Positively Penelope by Pepper Basham. I have had this book since last fall and been meaning to read it, and I got it in the mail like right before I began moving. So I was so busy and literally did not read one book, like did not finish a complete book for months until like the first of this year. You know what? After reading the serial killer book, I was like, I'm in the mood for a lighthearted, funny read. And I read Authentically Izzy last year and adored it. It was so funny. I loved it. So I picked this one up, and y'all, 5 stars. I loved it. I loved it so much. I think I probably like Izzy just a little bit better, just because her and Brody were just people after my own heart, book lovers. I loved all the book references, but this one was also super fun. Penelope is just a very vibrant, outgoing, funny character, full of life, all into her musicals and Julie Andrews and Sound of Music, all that stuff. So, and I haven't watched a lot of those. I have watched The Sound of Music, but a lot of the stuff she talked about I've never watched. So, yeah, but it was fun. It was really fun. I really like the guy. What's his name? Is it Matt? Yeah, because his full name's Matthias, which I like. So anyway, Penelope moves over to, I don't know how you say this. It looks like Skymar, but I've heard people say it different ways. So, or I'm going to say Skymar because that's what it looks like. But it's this country that Penelope moves or goes to she's traveling there for several months to help kind of not really renovate, but kind of get this theater back on its feet and bring it into the modern world on social media and all of that. And there is a family, the Grey family are the ones that own this theater, and the main guy character in the book, Matt, his wife left him several years ago, and he has a 7-year-old daughter, and he's kind of grumpy at the start when they initially meet, and so she's very sunshine and brightness, and he's kind of grumpy and like, oh, fairy tales don't exist and life is horrible. He's beginning to come out of that, but he is kind of a grump to start with. And so they're having to work together, and it's just interesting seeing what she brings to their lives and she brings to the whole story. And it is partially epistolary, so it's written in emails, online, chatting, text messages, and then also it does have a lot of, third person. Is it third person? Yeah, third person point of view. So it's a really good combination, I think, a really good combination. So I loved it. And I will say, in both of these books, one of my favorite characters was Luke. Like, I adore Luke. I adore the banner and everything. So I was so excited when my copy of Loyally Luke came in the mail this week. That was another reason I wanted to finish that one so I could read this. I have started it. I'm not very far, like maybe first chapter in. Oh, I'm so excited, y'all. So excited. I adore Luke. He's fun. He's fun. And even though he would probably hate it if somebody said he's fun, I like him. So I can't wait to read this one. This is one that I'm hoping to read this month. So those are the books that I have recently finished. There's a few that I'm still reading. My kids and we had slacked off a little bit on our nightly reading, just a lot going on. But we have picked back up on our Little House on the Prairie, so we're like about 20% into that. I'm still reading the Andrew Murray book, Intercessory Prayer. Loving it. It's such a fabulous book. So it's a slow read. I also have picked up this book by Daphne du Maurier, The Rebecca Notebook and Other Memories. Very short. This was also on my 24 list, 24 to read in 2024. And I am about 20% into that as well. And it's basically kind of like, the first part is kind of like her preliminary outline sort of Rebecca. It's kind of like what she wrote down, like the details and stuff she wrote. It also has like a epilogue that she didn't include. She changed it up. And also the rest of the book I think is just different little short essay kind of things that she wrote. So enjoying that. There's a lot of stuff that I want to read right now. Like there's so many books that I want to read. I have a bunch. Like I feel like, oh, there's so many books I want to read. Just a brief update. I'm not going to do a May. I mean, May's halfway over, so I'm not going to do a May TBR or anything. But I am hoping to start Pride and Prejudice in the next day or so. Like I said, reading Loyally Luke. So there's a handful of things that I'm wanting to read, but yeah, the month is halfway over, so who knows where we're going to get. I did finish, though, this one, so that was one on my TBR, and I've already read that one, which is good. And one more book that I've started is, I was in the mood for a lighthearted cozy mystery, so I did pick up Cat Among Pigeons by Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot. I know, a while back I talked about how I had started another Agatha Christie. I hadn't got very far in it, and I just got sidetracked, and so I'm like, okay, I'm putting this up, and I'm just going to get a different one, because I have this thing where, like, if I've only read a few, like, maybe a chapter or less, and it's been a while since I've read it, I'm like, I feel like, okay, I need to start it all over, and I just didn't want to start it all over, so I was like, I'm get a different one. So I got this one, and I'm about that far into it, but yeah. So we're going to see where it goes. I need to read more Agatha Christie because I want to read all her books, and I am going about it slowly. So anyway, that's what I've read. That's my reading plans, reading update. I'm sorry if y'all hear my kids in the background. They're back there fighting and arguing, and I don't know what all they're doing. But anyway, guys, that's what I've been reading. That's what I've been reading. Thank y'all for watching, and I can't wait to see y'all in my next video. Bye, guys.